Have you ever been in a situation where you're super excited to share something that you are very passionate about, only to watch the other person's eyes totally glaze over and they lose all interest and you can tell they're just looking to change the subject or exit the conversation as politely as possible? It's a real bummer, and you've probably been on the receiving end of a situation like that as well, and it just is no good for anyone. And as someone who's a huge nerd and loves things like Dungeons and Dragons and Star Trek, I have a lot of experience trying to share those passions with people and not always succeeding. And I've learned a few things that I'd like to share with you about how to more effectively communicate things that you are ultra passionate about with people who have no knowledge of them in a way that is engaging and helps them connect with you. Let's say you're a football fan and you're really excited for the Super Bowl. If you start talking to someone who is also a football fan, you are probably going to talk a lot about the particulars, about the what's. And that's like what teams are playing, what's going to happen in the game, what's going to happen at the halftime show, what happened over the course of the season leading up to the Super Bowl. A lot of very specific things that have happened. But if someone doesn't follow football, they don't know what has happened. They don't know any of those things. So when you talk about that, they don't really have a way to engage in the conversation. And what that means is it becomes one-sided, and it effectively is you lecturing them about football. Now, if somebody wants to know about football and said to you, hey, can you explain football to me? Then a lecture is great and exactly what they need. But if you're on a date, or if you're trying to make friends, or if you're trying to network professionally, a lecture is not what people are looking for. They're looking for connection, and connection requires engagement from both sides. So, what you can do instead is not talk about what happens in football, but talk about why you like football. And this works for basically any hobby, any interest, anything at all where you don't have the interest in common, where you don't have a equivalent level of understanding. Let's run through an example. I don't follow football, so we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, in this example, let's say I talk about the particulars. I might say to you, oh yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is great. I have this level 13 wizard. We actually just leveled up last session after we cleared out this keep that was full of undead commanded by this evil lich, and we found what we think is a staff of power, but we haven't had a chance to identify it yet. And I'm trying to figure out what level 7 spells to pick for my wizard, and you get the idea. If you play D&D, you probably have experiences that you can relate to that. Maybe you fought similar monsters, maybe you played a similar character, maybe you have strong opinions about what spell I should pick. The answer is Force Cage, by the way, always. But if you don't play D&D, there is no way for you to engage with that conversation. There's just no way that we can connect or talk about it except for me to lecture you about Dungeons and Dragons, which is probably not what you're looking for. Now, let's say instead of talking about what happened in Dungeons and Dragons, I talk about why I like Dungeons and Dragons. D&D is awesome. I've been playing with the same group of friends for almost 6 years now, and we're able to keep meeting up online because we can't play in person because of the COVID pandemic, and it honestly is the highlight of my week, a lot of weeks. Like, as soon as one game ends, I'm already thinking ahead to when are we going to get together again? When are we going to play again? I can't get enough of it. It's this really different experience because it's not like watching a movie or even playing a video game or even a board game together, because it's not taking in something that other people have created. It's collaboratively telling a story together. And it's, even though we're playing online, it kind of feels like we're sitting around a campfire together and it's just us, and we have this opportunity to just use our imaginations in a way that we don't really get after we stop being kids. There's really nothing like it. So that was probably a lot more engaging than my previous example where I just talked about my character a bunch. And even if you don't play D&D, you can probably think of experiences in your own life where you can really relate to that. Like, what's the highlight of your week? What's the thing that you look forward to doing every week? What do you do with your friends that lights you up, that you're so excited about that you just want to see your friends again and keep hanging out with them, and time just totally flies by? What is the thing that helps you get away from all the stuff that you don't like and really recharge? And what is the thing that helps you play and feel like a kid again? There's lots of avenues for connection that have opened up by sharing why I like D&D instead of talking about what I do when I play D&D. Let's go through another example, just to hammer this home because it's really important. Let's talk about Star Trek. I could tell you, oh yeah, I've been rewatching Star Trek Next Generation, and I just got to Darmok, which is the episode with the aliens who speak only in metaphors. So like the universal translator can translate the words that they say, but it can't capture the meaning because it's just a phrase like Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. Again, if you watch Star Trek, you're probably very excited to talk about that episode with me. But if you don't watch Star Trek, you have no idea what I'm talking about, and there's nothing that you can do except politely nod and let me go on and on and on, or be like, I don't care about this at all, which is more honest, but generally considered rude. So instead, let's talk about why I like Star Trek and why I'm rewatching a show I've already seen, which is always an interesting question to talk about. I really like Star Trek because, especially these days, it's so nice to look at a show that is built around optimism and hope for a better future, where the characters aren't really written to be relatable, like you and me. They're written to be aspirational. And they still have flaws, they're not perfect people, but they're kind of designed to be the best of us, and to exemplify the best that humanity has to offer, and give us something to strive towards. And especially these days, I just really need that. You know, things are going to really work out, and we're not just going to get back to normal, we're going to get to better than we've ever had. That's why I like Star Trek. Again, that was probably a lot more interesting than me trying to explain one of the episodes to you. So whenever you find yourself in this situation where you have something you really want to talk about with someone who doesn't have that interest in common, think about why you like it, and give yourself some time to think through it. You know, I've thought about why I like D&D and why I like Star Trek a lot, so I can just kind of go off the cuff about those things. But if you haven't asked yourself this question before, then you might need to give yourself some time to come up with a really actually truthful answer. And you might surprise yourself too with what you find. So that's what you do when you're trying to share. But what do you do if you're in a situation with someone else who is trying to share a passion that you don't have in common with them, and they are starting to explain and lecture and go on and on? Well, the good news is you can just ask them those same questions that you ask yourself. You can ask them, why do you do that? Or what inspired you to do that? Or what do you like about that? And as long as you ask it with a curious, positive tone, I don't think you're ever going to get a bad response. You know, I think sometimes there's that fear of, if you're like, oh, why do you do that? That people will feel judged or critiqued or criticized. But I've never had that experience. Every time that I have asked, oh, why do you do that? In an upbeat, curious way, because I genuinely want to know, I have gotten an overwhelmingly positive response because people are excited to share. I mean, wouldn't you be excited if someone asked you that question when you were talking about something that's really important to you? We don't generally get questions like that, because most of the time when we talk to people, we're just waiting for our turn to speak. And to actually ask a follow-up question, a deep follow-up question, like, why is that important to you? Deliberately puts the spotlight on the other person in a way that will make them feel seen and heard and important. And when people feel seen, heard, and important, they feel connected to you. Asking people these why questions, in any context, friendship, dating, professional networking, talking to your boss, any of those situations, this will help you build a deeper connection with someone. It'll help you go from a surface conversation about maybe even what food someone likes to getting into deeper stuff, such as why is that their favorite food? Maybe they share that it's what their parents made for them when they were growing up, and that's why they love eating it every day. You never know where it's going to lead, but it will definitely lead somewhere better than just talking about what the food is. And that's where connection happens. It happens in this deeper level. And I think especially these days, we are really hungry for genuine connection. So start asking yourself these questions. Take a look at the things that you hold most dear and ask yourself, why are they so important to you? And then start sharing your answers with other people and ask them the same questions. I think you'll find that the quality and depth of your conversations increases pretty dramatically. If you have any good experiences with this, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. And if you'd like to learn more about it, there's a link in the description to my website where you can find some of the blog articles that I've written. I also have a newsletter you can sign up for, also in the description, if you want communication tips like this in your inbox every week. Because right now we're all looking for connection, and I'd like to help you find it if I can. Alright, take care of yourself. Catch you in the next one.